Welcome to the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode number 144. Hi, I'm Jill. Thanks for joining us today.
And I'm Chris. Jill and I are the hosts of this podcast and the founders of the Becoming Ellie community.
We decided to name our community Becoming Ellie because Ellie was the Norse goddess of aging who beat Thor in a wrestling match. Chris and I thought, hey, we want to be like Ellie.
You can find out more about the Becoming Ellie community and this podcast at our website, becomingellie.com. Ellie is spelled E-L-L-I.
Here's a shout out to all of you who help support this podcast just by listening or by leaving comments, referring us to friends, or by joining the Becoming Ellie Facebook group. We also have a new thing on the website called Buy Me a Coffee. Basically, it's a way to give us a nominal amount to help offset the costs of the podcast.
Today, we're talking about reinventing ourselves in midlife or later. I think you'll enjoy it. Let's hear what Wendy Battles has to say.
Wendy Battles is the host of the Reinvention Rebels podcast. Wendy interviews women between the ages of 50 and 90 who have reinvented themselves later in life, from traveling solo around the world with a carry-on bag at 60, to running in global marathons at 71, to launching a modeling career at 72. These women are boldly making their dreams a priority and reality.
Wendy is a cybersecurity awareness expert at Yale University by day and pursues her passion for celebrating, illuminating, and elevating midlife and older women by night. At 58, Wendy is a reinvention rebel herself, having reinvented herself many times during her life, including as a management consultant, voice actor, and health coach. Her most recent reinvention as a podcast host is by far her most rewarding.
Welcome, Wendy. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Jill and Chris. I am thrilled to be here with you and in conversation.
Great. Well, let's get started by talking about your own history with reinvention. What prompted you to become a health coach and a podcaster?
Well, let me start with the health coach. And I will tell you that way back in the day, which now feels like it was forever ago, but I was in my 40s, and like many times in my life, it was at one of those touch points where I was really trying to figure out, what am I meant to do? What do I want to do? What am I meant to do? I've had many, many different jobs where I've been very successful, but I've always felt like, maybe there's something else. And because I had an interest in nutrition and I'd gone to nutritionists for quite some time, I was interested in that. I was interested in ways to kind of heal my body around some digestive issues and eczema. So I had this inkling that actually I wanted to go into public health, to be honest with you. But when I looked into doing that, I realized that you either had to kind of quit your job and go to school full time, which I really wasn't going to do. Way too expensive and not practical. Or, you could go do it at night, but it takes a while. And I found this nutrition school that was in New York, and I live in Connecticut, so not very far away. And it seemed to be a really good fit for me. And I went through the certificate program. And then I promptly, not that long after, said, I'm going to quit my job to become a health coach. And I honestly, ladies, did not know what I was doing. It's not as simple, you don't just open a business without having it figured out.
Providing services are one thing, but being a business owner and doing everything else is another.
Oh my gosh, a whole nother thing. So I did do it full time for 2 years. Then I moved to doing it part time when I got back to having like a part-time job and then going back to full-time work. I really honestly realized it wasn't for me. And I think one of the keys about reinvention for me is that if you're open to trying things, not everything's going to work on your reinvention journey. Some things work out, but some things don't. But what I also think is interesting is that if I had not had that experience of going out on my own and trying it and feeling like I failed, I don't think I would have had the persistence, perseverance, resilience to start podcasting and really stick with it, to find my niche and really step into something that I love. And to answer the second part of your question, how did I become a podcaster? Well, in my 50s, now I was like, okay, Wendy, it's now another decade later and you still have not figured out what you are meant to do, right? Like now would be a really good time. I went through a whole process about 4 years ago when I was 54 and asking myself a whole series of questions about what do I love to do? What am I meant to do? What do I feel drawn to do? What gives me joy? What don't I like? And I came upon, after a lot of quietly thinking and a lot of meditation, it came to me this idea that I had loved working with women when I was a health coach. So I liked that idea. And I've used my voice in many different ways, including as a speaker, as a voice actor that you mentioned in the intro, etc. So in like an amazing way to use my voice for good that could inspire women, especially midlife women and beyond, my, target audience, because I'm right there. It kind of all came together, Jill and Chris, in ways I hadn't anticipated, but that is literally how I got started. And again, I will mention, I did not know what I was doing, but I figured it out. And I think the key difference too is I wasn't like quitting my job to do this. It's my passion project, something I do on the side, but I'm able to fit it into my life in a way that works for me.
That's great. I hear a lot of the things that you're saying that I think Jill and I feel as well. That's cool.
You told us that you've learned the art of living on purpose and embracing life with more joy, ease, and trust. How did you learn that? And I guess, what does that actually mean to you?
Those are two great questions. What does that mean to me to live on purpose with more joy, ease, and trust? I felt like I had spent my life searching for that thing. And I spent a lot of my time, I think, when I was younger, feeling like there wasn't anything I was really good at. Not that in that sense that there are people that are gifted at certain things where they shine. And I always felt like, I'm okay at X, I'm okay at that. But there was nothing where I really had found my lane. And I think that when you start living with purpose, when you tune into what you're meant to do, then you can find something that you can do with ease and joy. And I think that was what was missing for me before. I was trying. Even with the health coaching, I'm like, oh, I think this is it. But it always felt like a struggle. When I was doing it, it felt like a struggle. It felt like a struggle to do all this work mostly on my own. It felt like a struggle to run a business. And to be honest with you, I didn't have ease, I didn't have trust, and I didn't have joy. I didn't have any of those three ingredients.
You had a job.
I had a job, but I didn't have something that lit me up. And I really liked working with the women, but it did not light me up. And what is different now? This idea of living on purpose, I feel like, one, I've leaned into what I'm meant to do. I'm so good at inspiring people. It comes really naturally to me. I love doing it. Even before I was doing this and I was thinking like, again, what am I meant to do? I couldn't conceive of something I could do with such ease and joy. Having that knowing that this is the right place for me. And when I figured this out, which took quite some time, but when I figured it out, ladies, that was like light bulb went off. I don't want to be like, it was like an aha moment, but literally, I think I came to realize that when you find that place of joy, then even the things you have to do to promote something, I love doing it. I love being on social media because I'm standing in my purpose and I'm adding value and light to the world. So it's something that lights me up and helps other people see hope and possibility. So I think that's the joy and ease part that I've come to see by finding this. But as I mentioned, it took me 54 years to figure it out.
I have a quick question. So you do the podcast, Reinvention Rebels, but do you actually work with clients to help women reinvent themselves? Or are we sort of more that you interview these women who are doing great things?
Well, I clearly am interviewing people, helping people see what's possible, inspiring them to really get started if they're feeling unsure, because I believe that if we can see a part of ourselves in someone else's story, which isn't necessarily our exact story, but it sparks something in us, that could get us into action. But on to that, Jill, with this great question. I am just about to launch in January this really fantastic 8-part audio program that is called Midlife Reinvention from the Inside Out. 8 essentials to greenlight your life. And it really is all about what you need to do this, because what my experience has been is that all of the answers I needed came from within. And we spend so much time searching for things when all we need to do, not that it's easy, that if we can look within, we can get those answers that we're seeking. No one else knows those answers but us. I mean, other people can help tease them out, that kind of thing. And that's really the idea of this audio program. And then I am hoping sometime in 2024 to start some kind of a membership, kind of coaching community for people that are like, okay, I listened to the audio and this is great, but I need a little help kind of taking the next steps. So that is my goal.
That makes sense. And I suspect that many of our listeners are looking for, their next steps, or they've engaged in a big adventure, or getting fit to prepare themselves to reach a goal, or thinking about a new goal for the new year. How big does a goal have to be considered a reinvention? I mean, do you have advice for people who are focusing on their goals right now?
Well, first of all, I will say that I think a goal can be as big or small as we want it to be. And it doesn't have to be moving halfway around the world to be a reinvention. I think reinvention is whatever we imagine it to be. And for some people, that's something really huge. Like, I want to start over and I want to do X. But for other people, it could be really small. I want to transform my health, which is still kind of big. But, but
I'd call that big,
right? But even in small ways, I mean, I think a reinvention is like reinventing my relationship to exercise, as people who are all focused on, helping women be fit. Like, I think that reinventing my relationship with exercise could be something very detailed, or it could be something like it could be just, for example, I'm going to explore what it would mean if I started moving my body more. Maybe you break it down into steps. So maybe part of the reinvention is step 1. And I can say this from experience because I was thinking that I've spent so many years exercising and being really, really fit. And then life happens, your body changes. I was caring for my mom who recently passed away. All the things that come with often midlife being complicated and spending less time on ourselves. And I thought, I need to reinvent my relationship with exercise. And I don't mean that it means I have to do it every day, but it means I want to find things that inspire me. I've been through many phases at gyms. I've been through different things with personal trainers. And I just realized, and now I'm working out at home, but I thought, I need something that really lights me up. Just like podcasting lights me up, I need exercise that lights me up. And so my mini reinvention around my body is beginning to explore what would it look like if I felt inspired and excited again about moving my body in new ways. And that could be a combination of things. But for me, I want to start off 2024 just by figuring out, well, what are the things I could do that are nearby? What are the things that don't make it hard for me to do it? Like, I looked at our local Jewish community center. They have an exercise program, but it's all the times that I can't go to it. It's for people that don't work. And so I already well, that's not it, but there's so many other possibilities. And I think that when we reinvent, part of it is having an open mind about what might be possible and not just the same old thing we've always done. So whatever it is we're doing when we have a goal, whether it's big or small or somewhere in between, I think that when we can approach it with this spirit of curiosity, look like if I felt really good in my body again, and I did some things that were different than what I've been doing. What if I took some time to ask my friends what they're doing? Google all the local gyms. See, go visit some. So I think that's what I mean about it. Doesn't have to be this like, I'm going to change my complete health, but the goal could be broken down into, I want to just get back to finding something that brings me joy when it comes to moving my body as a place to start on perhaps a bigger reinvention than I might be going on.
When you first started talking about that, I don't know why this popped into my mind, but I started thinking about moving my body in new ways. I'm thinking, is that like learning a new dance, ballroom dancing, or I don't know what that would be, Googling dances, because that's not something that I do. You know what I mean? But it's
I know someone who
ways.
sort of just decided to take up rowing, like on the boats in the river.
Like real rowing, not rowing at the gym.
No, not rowing at the gym, outside. But they joined a team where you get up at 5 a.m. or whatever, and you go in those long boats and started doing competitive rowing.
Wow.
I love that. And I think that speaks to what you both just said, that it could be anything. It could be anything. It could be something that's very labor intensive. Like that's a commitment to get up at however many days a week at 5 a.m. And, and you're committing to not just yourself, but these other people.
Right.
To do it together versus I could learn some new dances. I could take ballroom dancing, and I think it doesn't matter
dancing.
Whether we're right, tap dancing, hip hop dancing, you name it. Like it could be anything. And I think also another part of it is when we're reinventing ourselves, it's got to be something that's fun.
Yeah, I think fun is really part of that.
Yeah.
I hear that in your voice when you say joy and ease and all of that. That sounds like fun.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, I know that life is so serious for most of us in many different ways.
Right.
I don't know. I thought as I got older, it would be like more fun. But it is. You have to make your fun. You have to make your fun. You have to be intentional because I think I can get weighed down at least. I can't speak for the two of you, but I can get weighed down by all of the things of life.
Responsibility. Right.
Exactly. So
your podcast talks with women midlife or older who are brave and unapologetic. Can you tell us where they get their oomph from, their mental resilience? I mean, is there a secret that you can share with us about their mindset? There must be something in common with all these women, perhaps.
I would say yes. That's a fabulous question. And yes, there is something in common with all of them. And it definitely has to do with their mindset, because that is a common thread that runs through all of these women. And I would say that there are two key things about them. Oh, there's so many, but if I had to boil it down, just a couple. One, I would say is self-permission.
Self-permission?
Self-permission. So these women have given themselves permission to be curious, to have fun, to have an open mind, to lean into what reinvention could be. And a great example is Natalie, who is now 63, who lived in Cleveland, Ohio, maybe not that far from the two of you, and had this idea that she wanted to retire and move abroad. And when I interviewed her 2 years ago, she had gone on a solo trip around the world with her carry-on suitcase. The first time traveling by herself, went to 7 different countries. She stopped in Portugal for a month because she already had this idea she wanted to retire there. And in our episode, we talked so much about this idea of what's possible when we give ourselves permission to try things, try them out for size. You know how it is. Sometimes things work out and sometimes they don't. That's okay. But she was so inspired by going to Portugal and then going on this trip that it cemented in her mind that, yes, she wanted to become an expat. Part of the motivation is that you can live really comfortably in other countries on Social Security. So she actually did all of this due diligence. I mean, you know how it is. You move someone to another country, there's a ton of paperwork to complete.
There's a lot of due diligence, right?
Right.
You don't just do it.
Much. You don't just like tomorrow I'm going to move, or next year. But what I think is so key is that she now has been there for a year in her new home in Portugal and literally is living her best life. She is having so much fun, has learned Portuguese, has met all these local people. There are so many expats in Portugal, has this whole community of both people that are Portuguese and expats, and is having so much fun. And I think that speaks to this idea of self-permission. What if I gave myself the opportunity to explore something, not knowing what might come of it, but that I'm just open to the possibility. So that is definitely one theme. The other theme I would say is that these rebels are what I would call unstoppable. And I was thinking about that because I'm starting to do a series called Where Are They Now? And I'm interviewing 4 of my guests from when I first kicked off the podcast in 2020. So 3 years ago, called Where Are They Now? To really figure out, what did people learn? What did they find out about themselves? What's been the hardest part, the best part, et cetera, about their reinvention journey? And I just interviewed the first of the 4 people. The one thing she just said is this idea. She said, Wendy, I realized that I'm unstoppable, that there's nothing I can't do, that once I decide I'm going to do it, I may not know how, but I have the ability to figure it out. And once I make up my mind, I'm going for it. I am unstoppable in pursuing whatever that thing is. I think that's a theme that really runs through so many of the interviews I've done, that people might not say it so specifically or consciously. I am unstoppable. Not like, Chris, I am so unstoppable.
You can't stop me.
Right? Say that. But I do believe that is the feeling I get from looking at what these women have done. I'll give you this other quick example. I interviewed this really amazing woman named Angel Cornelius. She started her business, Maison 276, out of her kitchen when she was working full-time as a health administrator at a hospital in Texas. But she wanted to create some skincare products because her skin, as she was aging, was getting dry and her hair was getting really dry. And she had been prematurely gray for many, many years, and gray hair is really dry. So she started creating these products that then her friends at church were like, what is that? I want that. Well, that evolved into many circumstances later, someone at Essence Magazine saying to her, we would like 10,000 units of your body butter for our subscription box.
Wow.
Now, mind you, she'd been making it out of her kitchen. It takes an unstoppable mindset to figure out, how can I start to commercially produce this? It takes an unstoppable mindset to figure out when you go to production houses and they say, well, we only do this for 500,000 units or more. So no, we can't help you with this. It takes that unstoppable mindset to figure out, I can find a way to make this happen, which of course she did. And then they said, could we have 15,000 units, not 10,000? But she's gone on to sell it on QVC, to have this amazing presence, really for a community of midlife women like us, especially. That's really the focus. And so that just reminds me that we can all be unstoppable if we want to be, if we choose that for ourselves. It's totally possible. And I think in so many ways, we don't give ourselves enough credit, because I think that if we all step back and looked at the moments when we really rose to the occasion, we'd see that we are all incredibly capable. But I think we easily forget that we're unstoppable, and that we can give ourselves permission, and that we can do hard things, and that we can be really persistent. If it's something we really want to do, we can be persistent and work through the challenges like Angel did.
Yeah. I know you've talked with a lot of women who've done amazing things. You've talked to a 71-year-old woman who was preparing for the 7 world marathons. You've talked with a woman who started modeling at age 72. And I love this one, that woman, the travel around the world at age 60 with just a carry-on. I mean, I love that idea of throwing a backpack on my back and just going somewhere. And I guess I need to become more unstoppable, because I keep throwing up all these reasons why I can't do that. But what kind of person is inclined to do such big things? Is there something that some people just have, and then other people tend to throw up their own roadblocks? And how can we change if we're a roadblock kind of person, which, sometimes I feel like, oh, yes, but is what I say too often.
Well, I'm going to tell you a little secret.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
I think this is one of the key. This is, you were asking like, what can somebody do? Because we often, as you said, get in our own way.
Yeah.
We're often our worst critics, because honestly, no one talks to me the way I talk to myself sometimes. My husband doesn't. My friends don't. Like my boss doesn't. I mean, the things I say to myself sometimes are horrible. Like, Wendy, what the heck? But maybe not with that language. What were you thinking?
Language. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that one of my big secrets for getting started and continuing on our reinvention journey, which I know when we're going on a journey anywhere, we don't know where it's going to lead. Well, we might know we're going to a destination, but we don't know what's going to happen along that journey. We don't know what we're going to learn. We don't know what we're going to see. We don't know what we're going to encounter. So when we can be a little flexible, it makes, that journey easier. But my favorite way to get beyond those self-imposed ideas of what I can and can't do is to employ what I call Chris, a reinvention dream team. A reinvention dream team.
What is that? What is a reinvention dream team?
Yeah, a reinvention dream team are your guides on the side. It's your supportive tribe of people that get you and what you want to do and can help you. And I don't mean by helping you that they're going to help, they're going to do it for you, but they're just, and it can be as informal or formal as you like, but it's a group of people that you identify as the people who can hold your dreams, that believe in you, that want to see you shine and be successful as much as you do, that always have your back. Because those are the people that you can go to when you're like, Jill, I thought I could do this, but now I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. And they can talk you down and remind you, of course you can do that. And you are doing that, but maybe it's going to take longer than you know, that you can navigate around some of the roadblocks. So when we can gather those folks that have our back, that support us, that encourage us, that are our biggest cheerleaders when we don't feel like we can cheer for ourselves, I feel like that makes a difference in helping to get unstuck and helping to see what might be a possibility, pushing us forward when we get into that space of I'm afraid, which is normal, right? It seems like sometimes it's easy to just get stuck in fear or uncertainty, but those are the people that can just kind of give us that little gentle push, or maybe it's a heavy shove, whatever we might need. But I think they're also our truth tellers for us. They can be like, Wendy, look at all the things that you have done. Why is it you're thinking that you can't when I can go through 5 different things you've done in the last 5 years where you got outside your comfort zone. So that's what I'm talking about. People that can add that perspective, that when we're in it, it's so hard to see for ourselves to have that larger perspective, and they can help us see that bigger picture that can motivate us forward. So I think that's like one of my secrets for getting started on that reinvention journey, is employing these people to help us. And I talk about that in this audio program as one of the 8 essentials, is finding is pulling together, is just the simple idea of asking for help. Asking for help is one of those 8 essentials.
So when you first said that, I was thinking, all right, so you need to find a lawyer to help you with the immigration, and you need to I was thinking more help as in, I need a running coach so I don't get injured. I need whatever it is I want to do. But you're actually talking about people that believe in you, that they may not be your technical support person, but
your cheering community. Yes.
Yes, your cheering section.
Exactly. Your cheering section. And you're right, Jill. You may need those other people, but you're probably not going to tell your deepest, darkest secrets to a lawyer who's helping you with like immigration.
Only if I'm really in big trouble.
Right. Exactly. But you get it though. Those are those people that are really just cheering for us, encouraging us. Because I think that's so key to shifting that mindset we're talking about. How do you get from, I'm not sure, to I am unstoppable? How do you get from, I'd like to do this, to I'm giving myself permission to do this because my dreams and my goals matter. What I want matters. And that's where I think people like that can be so incredibly helpful.
So how do we make sure that our reinventions are big enough? I mean, does it come down just to thinking bigger, even at an older age? I mean, I was used to doing goals back when I was young. It just seemed like there was pretty easy to understand what goal I needed to put in place. But now, I don't know. How do you dream bigger goals? And is that important?
I think it's important if you are interested in being as vibrant and tuned into your life as possible, because I bet if we all said, who are the people that are vibrant in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, you would come up with some people. Many of those people are people that are excited about life. They have this open-minded perspective, like that I'm a capable person. And maybe, of course, things change for all of us as we age. So we might become less capable in certain ways, whether it's physically or whatever, but that there are still things we can do. I think one, it helps us be vibrant. It helps us age more fully when we have goals, because I also know that you may know some people, I certainly do, who retired and then they didn't really do anything. They kind of sat around. They didn't have a plan. And then I see people that sometimes are working into their 80s or 90s who are so vibrant and that really inspires them. So it's different for all of us. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but I do think it helps us be more engaged with our lives when we have goals, no matter our age. And the thing about it is our goals can be, again, as big or small as we want. It doesn't have to be some huge thing and I think that as we age, especially, our communities tend to get smaller.
Friends move away, things happen, right?
Pass away, that kind of thing. So I think that even having a simple goal of how can I keep building a community of supportive people around me, whether you're single, married, or divorced, it doesn't even matter. But I think that, again, I think the key thing, though, all of this gets back to is what is your why? What is your why? And we talk about in the audio program, it's so important to know your why. It doesn't matter. If you don't have an understanding for why you're doing something, then I don't think it's very meaningful and you probably won't stick to it. But I think you can figure out, what is my why for wanting to do X, whatever that thing is. When we can tune into that, that will also help motivate us. That will help us form our dream team. That will help us move forward, and get over those obstacles or detours we might encounter on our reinvention journey. So knowing that why, I believe, is also really important.
Speaking about age, do you think women who are dealing with menopause or becoming post-menopausal, that affects our abilities to pursue these passions? Because it seems to me that many women hit their 50s and suddenly decide, I'm going to start doing more exciting things. I'm just wondering if you see any correlation in physical changes or what happens when you get to be that age.
I do. I totally see that, Jill. I see that all the time. And I think it's for many different reasons. I think that sometimes we may have less responsibilities as our kids grow up or they sort of leave. And, we've been so focused on our kids through all this time and then creates a whole window, which for some people isn't a good thing because they're like empty nesters. And now what do I do? Where other people, it lights them. I think this idea of our changing bodies can also prompt us to look into, because you know how it is. I mean, your body's change and it's not always in a good way. I'm not gonna lie. It's not like I'm like, I love being postmenopausal. It's not like I'm saying that every day. I'm like, well, my skin is so dry, but I love it,
Yeah. So, I can't lose any weight on my belly, but yeah, it's great.
Exactly, Jill. You totally get that. It is a challenge. I mean, it's a challenging time, but I also think it can be an amazing time. It's both. And I think, we can have one thing and another. We can be, for example, scared about something and willing to take a risk, right? So I don't think it has to be like a one-stop thing, that we can have many different emotions around what's going on in midlife. But I certainly think it prompts us. And I also think that these days, so many midlife women are doing so many amazing things of every kind of stripe that we can imagine. And all we have to do is look on Instagram or on our social media to get inspired. And I don't mean that because you might be doing something that I'm going to do exactly what you're doing, because I need to find what's right for me. But I certainly think that this awakening that can happen in midlife can be spurred on by seeing these other possibilities to then motivate me to think, well, look at Jill and Chris. Look at what they're doing. How could I have my version of that? How can I find that thing that lights me up? When we can see that little opening and see some examples and be willing to lean in, even though, again, we don't know where that journey is going to end, there's so much possibility. So I see why midlife women are so excited, starting fresh. And just like with all the women I talk to, I can't help but get inspired. When I talk to these women and I see what they're doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cool.
How do you deal with naysayers? I mean, there's always those people who criticize us when we try to make changes or try to lose weight or accomplish a big goal, think that maybe it's too big for us or whatever. Do you have any advice on dealing with this, especially with people that are in your family? Because sometimes the closest ones to you strike the deepest.
They do. They do. I think that one, if we have a juicy goal or something we want to do, and we know that some people might be uncomfortable with that for who knows what reason. It could be anything. But I think that we have to really be careful about who we share our dreams with. So the cousin that always is like, really? Do you really think you should do that at this age, Chris?
Yeah.
women at your age are doing whatever it is. I think that we need to stay away from those people, right? Because those are the people, to your point, as naysayers, that can help, they can often talk us out of it or bring up the doubts like, oh, maybe they're right. I don't know if I could do that. But that's not what we need. We don't need that. We need people, again, like on a Reinvention Dream Team or whoever your crew is, who can remind us that you can do it. So I think that one strategy is definitely to keep close to the vest what it is you want to do and only share it with people that share your vision, that can share your dream, that can really encourage you. So I think we should really be more mindful about who we share things with. And, it's not that hard to point out for us to go through a list, any of us, of those people that are like, really?
Well, it's like the little voice in your head already. So it makes the voice a lot louder.
It does. And we don't need that, right? We don't want that. I will say too that a really amazing woman I interviewed, her name is Lori Tharps. She lived in Philadelphia and she and her family moved to Spain. Her husband is Spanish and he hadn't lived there since he was, like a teenager, but they moved to Spain and she gave up her tenured teaching job. So many people are like, why would you do that? Oh my God, how could you give up a tenured teaching job? You can imagine the talking people were doing. Like, are you crazy?
Well, there's so many people have that as their goal.
Exactly. What I thought was interesting in what they did is they decided when they were trying to figure out how to do this, how do we move to Spain, our whole family, they said they stopped listening to anyone who was negative. They only listened to positive things, whether it was podcasts or inspirational people or people that, were all focused on manifestation. They really consciously said, I'm going to stop interacting with and talking to negative people who can crush my dreams and only focus on the messages that will empower me to do this. They said it was she said it was such a game changer when they were able to kind of shift the mindset around that. So it's totally possible. We can still talk to whoever those people are, but we don't have to share every one of our dreams with them if they're going to be like, I don't think so, Joe. No.
One thing that really seems to come up a lot with people and what Chris was saying in your own head is the idea of age, that I'm too old to do that, or you're too old to do that, or women your age shouldn't be out running marathons or doing whatever. Any thoughts on that one?
There are so many examples of older women doing amazing things. So many examples that are in their 70s, their 80s, their 90s. I read this article recently. I don't remember where I saw it, but it was this woman who was competing in like the Senior Olympics and she was 90 something years old. So the thing is, you can totally lean into a limiting narrative about women and aging in our society if you want to. Similarly, you can lean into a much more expansive idea and mindset about what aging can mean. And at either turn, you can find examples to support your theory. Well, here are all the people that aren't doing anything and they just really have given up. I'm sure we know some of those people versus here are all the people that are doing amazing things. So it's a choice. I think it's a choice, though. I think we all choose so many things in our lives and we would have to choose. I want to have a vibrant life and do, amazing things. And when I say amazing things, I don't mean like becoming the president. I don't mean amazing like that. I just mean whatever amazing is for any of us.
Trying new things, challenging ourselves, getting a little out of the comfort zone.
There was a woman I read, I don't remember now what kind of race she did, but she did a race and they had to make a new age bracket because she was over 100.
Oh my gosh.
I guess it didn't just say it until you're done. It was till 99 or something. So they made a new age bracket for her, which of course she now holds the record in.
Do you think that the idea of older women has changed in our society? I mean, I still hear a lot of people refer to women as the old grannies or I don't know. I don't really hear old biddies or something, but they speak in kind of I guess it's the word elderly that kind of gets under my skin. I wonder what you think about this.
I think it's changing. I think that we're seeing more women who have gray hair in print ads and TV ads. I think that there isn't the same stigma where people used to say, you really should color your hair. I mean, it's such, I go back and forth. I color my hair and then I don't color my hair. But I really don't mind the gray, what I like to call wisdom strands. So I think that it is changing slowly. I think that we're seeing both everyday people and famous people that are going gray. Like, there's some, actresses that are doing that. And so I think that, what before was like, why would you ever like let yourself go gray? Now it's like, you should do whatever you want to do because it's your life. And so I think it's slowly changing. And I will say, Carolyn Doling, who I interviewed, who's the model who started modeling at 72 and is now 75, just last week, I was looking at a commercial and it was Carolyn. I can't even remember what it was for, but she was this, wearing exercise gear because she's really athletic. And, it was a commercial for something. And there were other people in there too. But I loved that there she was. And I think that how people are being portrayed has changed. How we see people being portrayed, or at least is changing so that it's less of that old biddy kind of thing and more of, because that's what it looks like in real life. Like that there are vibrant people who are aging in amazing ways and doing really cool things in big and small ways.
We talked with Jeannie McCall, who's in her 70s and has been an actor for years or came back to acting in her 70s, I think. But her agent told her to go gray, to quit coloring her hair, embrace your age, basically. She looks great, but.
Yeah. Well, Ginny's the one that was in American Ninja Warrior, right? Who competed on TV. Yeah. She was pretty amazing. Right.
Yeah. So she holds, I don't know if she's the oldest on American Ninja Warrior, but maybe as a woman. But anyway, yeah. But what your comment made me think about, she was surprised when she got the agent that they told her to not color her hair.
I love that.
That leads with, trying to find examples of older women that are doing amazing things, who are vibrant. Like, to change my whole mindset of what that means will help me to make a goal that will be more like dreaming your dream and stop the naysaying kind of in my head.
Totally.
And I think the value of like your podcast or our podcast is that you can talk to normal, everyday women, maybe normal isn't quite the right word, but everyday women, like they're normal people, as in they're not celebrities. They aren't people who have all day to spend working with trainers or food people, whatever. These are people who are living their lives and are still setting big goals or making big changes. And I think there's a big value for those to be our
role models.
Yes, I completely agree with both of you that is so the case. And, we basically can find our role models. We can do anything. I mean, if we so choose, it's a different world. And I love the fact that the agent was like, go gray.
Yeah. In your day job, when you're Clark Kent as opposed to Superwoman, you deal with cybersecurity. And
I do.
It made me think about one of the worries that many of our families have, our family members or ourselves, is that when women are out doing things, but we're putting ourselves in danger while we're traveling around the world or doing things online. Do you have how concerned about this should we be, and how do we keep ourselves safe?
Well, those are both really good questions. How concerned should we be? I think that no matter how old we are, whether we're younger or middle-aged or older, we always need to be cognizant of our surroundings. I think that that's just something that we always have to do. And these days, anything can happen. As we know, anything can happen anywhere. But we also live in a distracted world where it's sometimes easy to forget because we're multitasking and we're doing all these different things, especially younger people. So I think that we always need to be thinking about our surroundings. But that said, I think there's always a safe way to do things. So for example, here's a simple example. You have something that you want to sell on Facebook Marketplace or through Craigslist. They don't recommend that you have the person come to your house. They don't recommend that you go meet a stranger you never met before in some, deserted place. But what you can do is meet them at the local police station. So finding a safe space. And I think that's what we need to be doing, whether we're 16 or we're in midlife or we're older. I think we always need to be thinking about what is it I need to do in this situation to protect myself. What is it I should be aware of? Are there proactive things I can do? And do I feel like I'm getting into a situation that doesn't feel right? So leaning in also to our intuition, which could be whether it's in person or online. You get a suspicious email. We talk about this all the time at work. You get this suspicious email and you have a feeling because cyber criminals will play on your emotions. And you get that feeling if you're tuning in that something doesn't feel quite right. And maybe you can't quite put your finger on it, but when you start to get that sense that something seems a little off, just like if physically you went somewhere and it doesn't feel safe or something about it doesn't feel comfortable. And the best thing we can do is trust that feeling and leave, even if maybe it causes embarrassment or whatever, but trusting that gut feeling. I think it's the same thing because it's so insidious online, and it's so often insidious for older people, especially where people are lonely. Someone calls up and they're talking to you that maybe you can't see that they're trying to get your money in some way. I could tell you story after story about especially elderly people that have been on the phone for like 11 hours and spent $35,000 because the cyber criminal said, if you don't do this, I'll do X.
Well, I keep thinking of all the Instagram invitations that I get, which make no sense to me. I never heard of this person before in my life. And of course, it's some good looking guy, but if
that loves your beautiful smile.
What the weird is that? I don't know. I mean, and maybe I'm just at the cusp of being that older woman where, they think I'm confused or something. I don't know. Maybe it's too many, that I post too many pictures of flowers. That's my problem. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways that it's hard sometimes to trust your instincts, but I still see people saying, I can't wait to go, and they talk about a trip that they're going on next month, and they kind of lay out, I'm not going to be home for these weeks.
Yes.
And I'm still surprised when people post that online.
I know.
Or their vacation pictures, and I won't be home yet for 2 more weeks. We just started our vacation in Europe or whatever. And I'm thinking, that's sort of an invitation to the burglars, right?
That is.
So burglars are one thing, but it's the traveling to Europe, maybe by yourself or with a friend there are a lot of women who travel solo, which is fantastic, but I'm sure you have to be very aware of your surroundings doing that.
Yeah. I think so. And I have traveled in Europe by myself. I've traveled in Australia and New Zealand by myself. But I always was cautious and careful and, just very cognizant of my surroundings. I think that, of course, there are many different ways we could travel. So if you don't feel confident traveling by yourself, then travel, go on a tour. And I think now there's so many amazing tours you can go on. There's tours just for single women.
Yeah.
There, tours of, right, for different interest groups. So, I love Rhodes Scholars, which I've never been on a trip, but my mom loved the trips that they had. She went on many of them. There are so many ways as we age that we can do it in a way that supports us, where we can build community, where we can meet new people, where we don't feel like we have to necessarily put ourselves at risk. I think just becoming more cognizant of that is really important, and trusting ourselves. I mean, this goes also back to trusting ourselves. Like, we know ourselves. If something just doesn't seem right, we should trust that feeling, whatever it is, whether it's physical, in person, or it's online. We need to build that trust muscle.
I just like the idea of that. If I want to travel, I can. It's the safety thing that I think people worry about. But I would hate to not go somewhere because I was afraid. I mean, within reason. There might be places that I should legitimately be afraid to go to, but
yes, I agree. I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there's so many ways we can deal with that. But strength in numbers, going on tours, I think is such a fabulous idea to be able to see things without feeling like you have to do it on your own.
Right. You could do it on a tour first and then try it on your own because you know a little bit more of where it is. Yeah, that's a great idea. Huh.
There are tours that are more welcoming to single travelers, solo travelers. Perhaps that's an easy way to sort of start your foray into traveling on your own.
I agree.
One of the women that we interviewed a few weeks ago, Wendy Green, is involved with Rhodes Scholars. Yeah.
Yes. And I will tell you that my mom went on many trips, and she met this really cool woman who was from Chicago, and then they met up for another trip. They're both single. So I think also it can help you expand your sense of community, and you can meet such interesting people from all over, and that can lead to so many other adventures. So
a new person on your dream team.
A new person on your dream team. Yes, Chris. Exactly. Exactly. And I think that is so cool.
So Wendy, do you see yourself reinventing yourself again? I mean, how do you know when you should stay with what you have, when you're content in what you're doing? Or is this just something that keeps happening?
I think that we're all on a reinvention journey, and how much of a journey we want to be on is up to us. But
okay,
I don't think there's any limit to it, because I think so much of the learning, I know sometimes we say, well, I want to do X, and we think that that's like the final destination on my journey. I'm going to be whatever, I'm going to do whatever. And it may or may not be. Because sometimes as we're trying to get to X, things aren't working out the way we think, and we get detoured to something else that's really much more suited for us. It's a better fit. It's something that brings us more joy. So I think that when we're open-minded about the idea that we continue to evolve, if you're a curious person, if you're interested in learning, if you're interested in the world around you, you're evolving, whether it's big or small ways. And I think that if we can really capture that mindset and apply that to reinvention, it could be a one and done, or it could be, this is the latest stop on my reinvention journey. And I can see all kinds of possibilities for what I'm going to do. And a great example is, I love podcasting. Because I even have a podcast for work called Be Cyber Fit that's all about simplifying cybersecurity for everyone, just really simple things that we can do. So I love my work podcast. I love Reinvention Rebels. But for Reinvention Rebels, part of how I am going to continue to reinvent myself is that I'm going to have the Reinvention Rebels TV show one day.
Wow, you think big. Yeah, that's great.
So I think that's what I mean about reinventing. Even as a podcaster, I'm reinventing myself as I grow and I learn new things, and I'm learning ways to be more effective. So I think that for anything we do, we can continue to evolve and reinvent, even in little teeny tiny ways. Reinventing, how do you take something that's very labor intensive and make it less so and still come out with a really great product is something I always think about. Like, I don't have all the time in the world, ladies. I've got a job
and a life
and a life. And so, and it is very, and because I'm one of those people, like, I like to do everything really well. I like to have everything look really good. I want my product to be like awesome. I put a lot of effort into it. And, that effort takes time. I think also I'm learning some shortcuts and ways that we can still have a great sounding product, but use things like AI. How can we use AI to our benefit to help us in generating show notes, for example? So I am continuing to evolve as a podcaster and learning so many things.
So you've been podcasting about 3 years, you said. What's your favorite thing about podcasting?
Interviewing people and connecting with them, listening to people's stories, listening to what they've learned. I just love the human connection that you can get with a podcast. I love how compelling it is. I love how people have so much wisdom inside. And when you ask the right questions, you can really bring it out. You can hear what they have to say. And so many people share even little bits that are really enlightening, because we never know what's going to inspire someone. So I think for me, it's that connection to other people, and that is so powerful. And especially, during the pandemic when we were less connected and our whole worlds got turned upside down and it was so isolating, that for me, it was such a powerful way to build a community when you couldn't just build community by going and seeing your friends or meeting people in the ways you normally would. So for me, it felt so uplifting. I love it. Like, I could just do it forever.
Well, if our listeners wanted to listen to your podcast or follow you online, where should they look? Where should they go?
So many places to look, but the podcast itself, Reinvention Rebels, is available on all the typical podcast platforms. You can also find it at reinventionrebels.com. You can find me on social media on Instagram at Reinvention Rebels. I've got a Facebook page that's Reinvention Rebels, and I'm busy on LinkedIn as well.
That's cool. Great. Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure talking with you today, Wendy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a blast with the two of you, and it was so much fun.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring. I really enjoyed talking with you today. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Women are just amazing, I love how many of us make big changes at all stages of life.
Yes, it's quite inspiring to hear some of the things that women are doing. And I really like the things that Wendy talked about, giving yourself permission to go do things, to try things, and also that idea of becoming unstoppable. Both of those things, it's a concept that I don't typically think about when I'm making choices about goals and things like that.
Yeah. There was one thing about all that. The point of trying something means that it's not irrevocable. You can try something and decide, maybe this wasn't the best idea. Maybe I really don't want to travel around the country by myself in an RV, or...
And sometimes you can discover other things about yourself and something else that you really like that's kind of related to that you wouldn't even have found out about without trying.
Right. I guess that's what I liked was that just because you decide to try something doesn't mean you are stuck. You can reinvent yourself again. You can reinvent yourself, decide, hey, this isn't quite what I meant, and do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is the power of what if I tried this? What if I did that? The what if, it opens things up.
And the whole thing about naysayers and not letting other people drag you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
She said, sometimes you just don't tell people what you're doing. I have heard people say that when they are just simply trying to lose weight, and that gets to be a real emotional issue for family or friends who feel threatened by that.
You mean the folks that push food on you?
Yes. And they you've lost enough weight. You're getting too thin, even though maybe still have a ways to go.
I cooked all day. So here you go. I made this just for you.
Right. And so that perhaps if you just don't tell them that you're trying to lose weight, people don't always notice those things right away. You might get away with a bit less, criticism.
Yeah. It's goes back to what she was talking about, the dream team. You develop a group of friends or people that you admire that you keep their thoughts close around you so that, you have sort of a buffer. So you don't necessarily share your goals and dreams with people that are going to knock it apart. Right?
Right. And one thing I've been sort of realizing is your dream team can be your dream team for different parts of your life.
Absolutely.
We don't have to have the same people supporting us in all things.
Yes. No, I totally agree with that.
I guess we shouldn't feel that we're too old to do something. So I just signed up to run a 5K on New Year's Eve day. Excellent. And it will be the first race that I've run in a couple of years.
That's very cool. Very cool.
I felt like I needed a challenge, and there is something about putting something on the calendar to motivate you.
The thing about a race, it really puts you out there because you have a time that's kind of recorded and you're out there with other people. It's something very shared, the shared joy of just being alive and being able to do something like that is really fun.
Yes,
really fun.
It is. And
you're going to enjoy yourself very much. I know.
I'm sure it'll be fun. I have never really been fast. And I remember that one race where I was just sort of chugging along and there were people that knew me that were back at the finish line, and they got fussing that something must have happened because I wasn't back yet. And they were going to go charging down the road to look for me. And my boyfriend said, no, she's fine. She'll be here. Don't worry about her.
See, he's part of your dream team.
Yeah.
Supporting you.
Well, he knew at least that I was out there running and that I was not that fast.
Right. Well, fast is all relative.
Yes. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it. It'd be fun. So it gives me something to sort of train for over the next month.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, there was another thing too. When we were talking about traveling, which, I love traveling and I love those goals for being able to travel on your own. But when Wendy Battles was talking about checking out trips through the Rhodes Scholars as a way to travel with someone without, while still being solo, it made me think of Wendy Green from the Hey Boomer podcast, and we talked to her. That was episode 139. Wendy Green organizes trips through Rhodes Scholars, and I think if you go through her website, you might get a discount. I'm not sure about that, but I do know they sponsor her. Anyway, Rhodes Scholars does put on some really nice trips, and I've heard they're very forgiving, or not forgiving, but they're very supportive of solo travelers.
Yes.
If you don't have someone to go with, you could still go with a group and have a good time.
Yes, I think that's really awesome. In fact, I'll put a link to her Rhodes Scholars portion of her website so that others can check that out too.
Yeah. If you do get a discount, it's worth checking out.
Hey, let Jill and I know what your thoughts are on reinventing yourself. Have you done something completely new or set a big new goal for yourself? Please post a comment or send us an email.
Yeah, it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah.
You can find Becoming Ellie. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
And if you haven't already done so, please consider joining our private Facebook group, Becoming Ellie. We'd love to have you join us.
It was great talking with you today, Chris. I'm looking forward to our next episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
I am too. See you next time. Bye-bye now.
Bye.